All right then. So today we're going to be breaking down Benoit Denis versus Renato Moicano, which happens this weekend at UFC Fight Night. Moicano versus Benoit Denis. So as you can see by the screen that you're looking at right now, I think Benoit will be destroying Renato Moicano. As you can see, he's already 2-0 in France, and I don't see that trend stopping. They're clearly giving him favorable matchups, like not favorable matchups per se, but like the next step up kind of guys. Other than his last fight, where he took a huge step up against Poirier, he's been built up the right way, and he's gotten some really, really good wins in the division. Moicano is, okay, let's just get into the video. Okay, some strengths for Benoit Denis. Well, first of all, he's stronger. He's the stronger of the two, and he's probably one of the strongest people in the entire division outside of maybe like Islam Makhachev. Like, he is so strong that when Puellis or Matt Frevola took him down, he literally just pushed them off of him. Just got his hands under the hips and just, boop, they went over the top. On top of being stronger, he's also the significantly better striker, in my opinion. Moicano hasn't really shown any. Like, he was good, don't get me wrong. Wait, is that my watch? I found my watch. Outside of some really good performances against Anthony Hernandez and some decent performances against Brad Riddell, he hasn't really shown that he's elite on the feet, let's just say. Against Drew Dober, he was getting pieced up on the feet, got cracked. And in his last fight against Jalen Turner, he obviously got dropped. But Jalen Turner is not one of those fighters that will just swarm you and just boom, 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 shot after shot after shot, chase you down. Because after he hurt Moicano, I have a theory. You remember when Tim Kennedy said that after he knocked out or finished Yoel Romero because he couldn't get up from the stool, that he had this massive adrenaline dump? I think that's pretty similar to what's happening right now, or what happened with Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner just knocks down Moicano and then just goes for a walk-off. Because if you remember, the bonus for that night was $300,000. And I'm guessing he just wanted that, and I think he had a huge adrenaline dump, and afterwards just didn't look the same. He didn't even chase down Moicano after he got up, and Moicano was significantly hurt. Which actually, let's skip this one ahead for now and go to aggressive / great fight starter, I guess. Benoit is far more aggressive than Jalen Turner was. If you remember the fight against Frevola, after he head kicked him, he immediately went down to capitalize off that strike. He knew he was out, but he still went for it. There's no let up in Benoit Denis, especially in the first round. In the first round, he goes out guns a blazing. He doesn't care. He will shoot takedowns, but with those takedowns, he won't just be looking to lay on you. He will be throwing bombs after bombs. He doesn't care if you can get back up because he'll just continue on this relentless pace that he just seems to be going to, outside of his last fight where he did tire out. But I think the staff had something to do with that probably. The jiu-jitsu and the takedown defense, like I said, Moicano is a great jiu-jitsu guy, but I think Benoit is probably good enough to be able to counter it. Like off the ground, I mean, he fought Claudio Puellis, and he took him down, stayed in his half guard, and he could do nothing about it. Benoit Denis basically dominated him from that position, just threw strikes, ground and pound, finished him off. And if everything was even, let's just say the jiu-jitsu, the takedown defense, and the striking, like Moicano somehow making some huge strides at the age of 35, which would make absolutely no sense. If everything is even, surely the fact that Benoit has the home crowd advantage, and this is France, keep in mind, this is France. This isn't like Canada or some town in America that they go to like 4 times a year. They go there once a year to France, and every single time it has been the most deafening crowd of the year, it feels like. Benoit Denis in his fight against Claudio Puellis everyone was on their feet, everyone was singing for the entire time. And even though, since MMA is not like normal team sports, if everything is even, you've got to think that like this would be enough to throw Moicano off or rally Benoit Denis when he's getting tired, like those later rounds, or if he gets to the later rounds, but like when you're tiring out, your arms, the lactic acid's building up, you're throwing bombs against the cage, and then all of a sudden you have a second win and you just keep going, finish the round strong, maybe even finish Moicano. Anyway, let's get on to some of the strengths of Moicano. Keep in mind, this is relative to the fight that he's in, so the list is a little bit short here, but we've got good jiu-jitsu. He does. I think Benoit Denis, when he goes for takedowns, just leaves his head out. That's why Dustin Poirier was attempting so many guillotine choke attempts, I suppose. He's got good takedown defense. Like, I think he can get back to his feet, even though Drew Dober took him down and he couldn't really Drew Dober did some significant damage when he was on top of Moicano. And I think if Benoit Saint Denis gets into the same position, the same thing's probably going to end up happening. And he's funny. I think that's a big reason why people are picking him, because I think they think he's funny. Because realistically, I mean, you're looking at like the lightning won't strike twice. Let's be honest here, we all thought Jalen Turner was going to send Moicano to the grave. And now this matchup got announced and we think the exact same thing. I don't think lightning strikes twice. I think Benoit is probably a smarter fighter than Jalen Turner. I mean, it's not a huge bar to climb, but I think he's aggressive enough to like go for a follow-up shot. You know what I mean? So, I mean, now let's look at some of their weaknesses. Benoit Saint Denis' weaknesses. His chin is questionable, okay? Like, he fought Poirier. The chin is questionable just because it was cracked this year in his last fight. He's been in wars, keep in mind, and I don't think his chin is shown to be that much of a problem. It's just something to be questionable about, I suppose. Then we have the cardio question marks. Now, Benoit Saint Denis has had finishes in the first 2 rounds of his last 5 wins. In his last fight, he did gas out and got knocked out in the second round. But that's Dustin Poirier. And Benoit Saint Denis was coming in with a staph infection. I think we can give him the benefit of the doubt just for this one fight. And I guess he's a wild brawler, so he's like susceptible to getting chinned, which is, something that could happen. But is Moicano striking good enough for that? Like, does he have that kind of power to just clip him before Benoit clips him? Like, I'm sure, like, Benoit isn't just like, it's not just a wild brawl. It's like, Benoit knows what he's doing. Like, I agree that his chin, like, the defense for it is not the best, but, I mean, these are some of his weaknesses. And if you're going to bet against him, this is probably what you're thinking. The chin, the cardio, and the wild brawl. You're expecting Moicano to survive the first 2 rounds, I'm guessing. Then maybe in the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th, like, take him down, do some work, get a submission maybe, ground and pound. This would be the reason you would pick Moicano. But some of the weaknesses for Moicano are his own questionable chin. He got cracked by Jalen Turner and was finished. That fight was finished. Like, if Turner had any sort of aggressiveness, he would have followed up once Moicano got up and just finished him off right there and then. He's weaker. And I'm talking about, like, I mean, I'll get into the age thing later. And actually, you know what? I'll leave this one off till then. Didn't train with Poirier. That. Dustin Poirier came out and said he would not be surprised if Moicano submitted Benoit Saint Denis. First of all, they're training partners. Obviously, he's going to be favorable to him. You could say, oh, well, if he beat Benoit, wouldn't he want Benoit to look good? Well, no. Your bias against your training partner supersedes your bias against the guy you beat. You know what I mean? But also, Moicano came out and said he trained with Claudio Puellis instead of Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier was throwing up some good guillotines. I agree Moicano's are better, but he didn't even, like, get the, the striking down with Poirier. Poirier's like, okay, he's going to throw an overhand, shots to the body, you're going to cover up like this. He's training with Claudio Puellis, who did have a good brawl with Benoit, but realistically couldn't, like, the path to victory for Puellis was realistically submission or holding him down, similar to Moicano. And that's what he's training. Like, I don't know if this is, you know what I mean? I get it, Poirier's a big star, but not being able to use him in your training camp. And I do think, keep in mind, Moicano is turning around from April after getting knocked down. Don't get me wrong, Benoit's only turning around since March, but man, it's tough. And he's 35 years old, which brings us back to him being weaker. He's just, the strides that he will be making in his game are just significantly smaller than the strides Benoit Saint Denis will be making. You have to admit that. I mean, 35 years old, like, he's not in his athletic prime anymore whatsoever. He looks weaker, like, the definition's gone down. Maybe it's because he's a lightweight now, but I mean, even at featherweight, he was getting chinned by the great strikers of the division, like Jose Aldo, Korean Zombie. At lightweight, Fiziev, Turner, technically, right? his chin didn't look the best against. I mean, it looked good against RDA, but it took some years off of it. Plus the fact he's 35. I don't think he's going to take a punch like he used to. I don't think he's strong enough. I think he could tire himself. Like, it's not like Benoit Saint Denis the only one that could potentially get tired. I think Moicano could do it as well. And I think the path to victories for him are takedowns. And I just don't think he's strong enough to get them anymore. And even if he did, Benoit's jiu-jitsu, his strength, his takedown defense is good enough. He'll keep it on the feet. He'll hurt him. He'll hurt him bad. Ooh, I'm running out of breath. Prediction, Benoit Saint Denis by KO in the first 2 rounds. And I have money on this. This is the first leg of my 3-leg parlay. This, Kayla Harrison, Raquel Pennington for next week. I have Benoit Saint Denis money line, $125. I'm pretty confident in this. It should be in the first 2 rounds, but on the off chance Moicano somehow survives, just take him at the money line. The prediction will be in the first 2 rounds, though. And I'm sad, as you can tell by the emoji on the bottom right hand, or the bottom right hand of the screen. I like Moicano. I think it's a great personality. I wish it wasn't Benoit Saint Denis. I don't think this is the right matchup for him to take. Like, is this the right matchup in terms of rankings even? No, I think Moicano's maybe like 1 rank higher than him, so he's going back in the rankings. He should have, I mean, after coming off that once like lightning striking win against Jalen Turner in the promo, it should have been Beneil Dariush, honestly. Or someone higher in the rankings than himself. Like, Dariush is coming off slides. His chin's also questionable. That's a fun fight. You can make that fight and people will be like, oh, who could win that one? But instead, you're making him fight maybe a tougher opponent, honestly. He hits like a truck. He's got good takedown defense, good jiu-jitsu. The worst stylistic matchup they could have picked for Moicano. Your bet is literally that Moicano survives and covers up and Benoit gasses, and that's it. But looking onto the positive sides, the Paddy Pimblett fight is still on the table. Because if you remember the way they built Sean O'Malley up, they put him against like the lower unranked fighters, and then they gave him Pedro Munoz, and then all of a sudden he was fighting Petr Yan for some reason. He didn't even beat Pedro Munoz. I think they could go down a really similar pathway for Paddy Pimblett. He's just gone into the top 15. He will, if he beats Moicano, they're probably going to give him like maybe Justin Gaethje's decided he's going to retire but have one last fight, so they maybe want to use Paddy on him. Or if Oliveira loses, maybe that's the fight they want to do for Paddy, because he's got good jiu-jitsu, keep in mind. Like, he could hold off Oliveira, maybe the matchmakers are thinking. And on the feet, I mean, I guess Oliveira's better, but Paddy, you never know with these things. I'm just being optimistic. I think Moicano, if he somehow wins, should definitely be looking at a Beneil Dariush fight. He shouldn't go back and fight Paddy Pimblett. The road to the title, like, he's 35. He's got to get this moving. Like, he needs to fight Dariush and then try to get himself a title eliminator after that. But if he loses, I think the Paddy Pimblett fight makes a lot of sense. And I think that's good money for Moicano, right? Like, the feature fight of a pay-per-view. Like, I mean, and if he, and they're good personalities, they'll build the fight up. It'll get trending for UFC. They'll get a lot of views on Twitter, on whatever. Dana seems to like that. But if Benoit Saint Denis wins, I mean, we saw the fight against Poirier. It was a great fight. It was a co-main event of a pay-per-view. They clearly wanted to push Benoit Saint Denis as a big star, and I see it. I see the vision. He's in the same vein as like a Poirier, a Gaethje, a Chandler, and Oliveira. You know what I mean? Like, these extremely exciting fighters that you just want to see fight each other all the time, even if it is clogging up the division and almost making sure that people like Benoit can't get up in the rankings. But if he does beat Moicano, it'll go viral. Let's be honest here. The crowd. This is one of the best cards of the year, by the way. Like, just in terms of like fun fights up and down the card, this is amazing. He can fight Michael Chandler or Charles Oliveira if Oliveira loses, or maybe if Oliveira loses, maybe not the Benoit, maybe Benoit inside fights, returning Fiziev, a great fight nonetheless. But Benoit Saint Denis could realistically get onto a pay-per-view feature fight with Michael Chandler early next year. Because here's the thing with Michael Chandler, right? He really, really wants the Conor McGregor fight. And in order to get that fight, I feel like if he loses to Oliveira, which I think he will, this entire matchup is predicated on that prediction, by the way. If he loses to Oliveira, he will still be chasing that McGregor fight, and I don't think McGregor's coming back until July of 2025 for International Fight Week. They have to justify a Conor McGregor fight in Las Vegas, and I think that makes the perfect sense. I think Chandler might turn around quick. Like, I'm talking, he loses, he's like, okay, get back in the gym. I'll take a fight against whoever. Let's get me back in there in March. In March, Benoit Saint Denis coming off a win here. He will wait after this fight. I think that makes sense, waiting off, because, let's not just throw anyone at him. Like, that makes fights that get him nowhere, you know what I mean? And I think that fight would be big enough if Benoit Saint Denis beats him, and he could, because he'd be 40 years old by then. We're looking at next year's UFC Fight Night Paris, and we're looking at a main event of Benoit Saint Denis versus Justin Gaethje almost. And I think they should do that. They should progressively make these UFC Paris cards better and better and better. Because I think there's a big market there. If anyone watching this, all 8 of you, if any of you are French, let me know. What do you is Benoit a star at all? Because I have no clue. Obviously, is Benoit a star? Is Cyril gone? Like, I know he's a star. Him, Manon Fiorot. What's the perception of these guys? Like, how big can they get? Because I think Benoit Saint Denis could be a big star if he comes off a win here, beats Michael Chandler. Next year's UFC Paris, main event, him versus a top 5 guy, maybe like Oliveira. Like, I'm saying, Oliveira, Gaethje, like, these guys are just there, and they're getting old as well. I think Benoit could potentially beat one of them. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll make another video on Nasser Nimavov soon.